Okay, so I am still in Ashland, Oregon. I'm back at the hotel after sort of the festivities have concluded. They're watching Jimmy's video again, and I've seen that quite a few times. When we just had lunch and we were just talking about the weekend, and of course, anybody knows Jimmy does the lessons musically, and today's lesson, of course, he did music. I came lesson 319 of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. I came for the salvation of the world. And when I read this lesson, and we've done it every which way but loose today, chanting and singing and sitting in the sun. When I read this lesson, I can't think of a more plaintive and clear expression of my purpose and a more plaintive and clear understanding from Jesus. This is clear as day. This particular lesson is almost unmistakable when read in English by anyone. I would say, I came for the salvation of the world. That would be my only purpose. And the truth of the matter is, before I experienced I had an experience of what salvation is, of being my salvation and the salvation of the world. I had always hoped that there was such a thing as salvation, because however I was experiencing myself definitely led me to believe that I was a sinner and unsaved. And when I finally reached the end of the ability to defend myself against my own thinking about that being who I am, about that being my identity, and surrendered as completely as I could in that instant, that I was blessed with the experience of salvation, in my joining with Jesus, who represents the achievement of salvation to me, and is how under his grace and tutelage, friendship, I don't know what you would even call it, by listening to his voice, the experience of what salvation is for me and all the world was given to me. And since that time, I've known this lesson particularly to be completely true and express my own purpose here. I just came from a weekend, and I've been involved in a weekend. It's interesting that some of these weekends are billed as Course in Miracles weekends. And when you get there, there's no sign of A Course in Miracles. There's a lot of material by the people who are putting on the workshops, but seldom is there actually a copy of the Course in Miracles being offered to the people there. So when I travel or go to these events, I like to make the actual words of Jesus that we're celebrating being published 50 years ago available to the people who are there. And in that regard, I do. And as I said to everybody, I have a foundation, I'm part of a foundation, a 501c3, that gives away A Course in Miracles to anyone who asks, prisoners especially, and those who can't afford it. I also have a publishing company that sells them in bookstores and online. And my function, part of my function that Jesus has entrusted me with, and I look at it as service and stewardship, is the making available of this particular edition and some other works we're going to be doing of A Course in Miracles, the sparkly edition. So I like to make it available when somebody's calling the weekend a Course in Miracles revival. It should be available. But having a foundation that can give away the books and a business that can sell the books. Any way you desire to get a sparkly edition, you help me fulfill my function. You either operate as a write-off that I use for the foundation, or if you choose to pay for your copy, you help me fund the foundation and continue to give away the book and make them available through printing them too and publishing. So it doesn't matter to me. Never let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. But both my hands seem to be doing the same thing. And both support the mission that I was given in the stewardship of making this edition available. So I'm grateful that I am given the opportunities when I am to be able to offer it to people and to speak on its behalf too as well. I'm always a little bit, when I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I would never set up in that sense, a workshop just for me to come and teach, because I don't necessarily am not one to self-initiate. I'm one to answer requests and answer the call. Having answered the call within, I answered the call without as well. But I wouldn't set up a workshop. However, when I sit with this number of people from beginning Friday night until this afternoon, and there's fertile ground, fertile minds, it would be nice, to be able to take a chunk of time the way I used to do and give them my take and understanding as to how the course works, rather than to utilize the course as a way to promote what I'm doing and the work that I'm doing in other regards, which to me is one and the same, because that's basically all I do. But to someone else, people who set up these weekends or teach and then make their books available but don't sell the course, I'm a little bit at a loss, and I would love to help them out. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against them expressing, because this is one of the things we talk about today. The opposite of depression is actually expression. And when you learn to express from within yourself honestly, then things begin to happen to you within at a more, let's call it, divine or cosmic level, that begin to reflect in the world and the changes that come to you just because you can be honest with yourself. And A Course in Miracles is a tool that we can utilize to allow ourselves a space to be honest, which is what this lesson simply is about. I came for the salvation of the world. Here is a thought from which all arrogance has been removed. Yes, it was quite humbling for me. And I was humbled by the process I put myself through. And I was humbled at my stupidity when I recognized the simplicity of salvation, when I finally took my brother Jesus' hand, when I could have done it much quicker and sooner had I not rejected the offer the first time he made it to me. And that in itself is a learning. But it is true that in the moment of salvation, when you recognize that you and all your brothers have always, are now, and are being saved in that sense, and when you recognize that the salvation or the experience that you're being offered isn't one that corrects, in a sense, sin the way we think sin is, but offers you an understanding that sin, guilt, and fear never existed, and you were simply mistaken for a moment. That's quite humbling, because we need do nothing. And this says why. The arrogance opposes truth. Here's a thought from which all arrogance has been removed, only truth remains. For arrogance opposes truth, but when there is no arrogance, the truth will come immediately. Now, I always like to teach this and show you what the back door is, so you can utilize the understanding that's in the Course that Jesus has given us to allow your mind to be positioned in the place where this is speaking of and salvation can come. Okay, so now when he says, and this is the back door, this is how you utilize this, not as a tool of judgment, but as a tool of alignment and convergence, okay? But when there is no arrogance, the truth will come immediately and fill up the space the ego left unoccupied by lies. Okay? What this is saying is, anyone who has had an experience of the truth has met this criteria in their minds and hearts for an instant and allowed truth to dawn on them. The more we can maintain this attitude in our mind and our hearts, the more we can allow ourselves to touch upon the truth. But one of the things that I have learned, and we were discussing also this weekend, is the non-necessity to maintain an illusory state within space of time of only living in truth, but the utilization of what's glimpsed in those moments when we are without arrogance and truth dawns upon our mind. The universal principles that get interpreted into our life as principles that we can live by in order to not only experience salvation, but be the savior of the world that we are actually the center of when we begin to understand the nature of how all this is occurring. Okay? Anyone who has had this experience has met this criteria. It's much like forgiveness. Now, when you can look in your mind, and Jesus is saying somewhere in the Course, everybody has these experiences at some point in time. More so, my understanding and what I've been given to know about the Course is, and about many of the teachings that are coming into the continuum now, is there are people who are having experiences of light, and experience of, maybe they don't call it salvation, but of something else. And they don't know what to call or how it happened. So in a language that they understand, or that you and I can understand, enters into something like this, a manual for how your mind and heart operates, so that you can look at this in a correct and corrective way, leaving that space blank. Only the ego can be limited, for therefore it must seek for aims which are curtailing and limiting. Okay, in order to keep that space closed, the ego will keep you in a constant identification with limited goals and limited outcomes, to answer limited questions that only it asks. And the only reason why it asks you it, because if you could for a second allow your mind to not close the gap with your own thinking, because the ego is egging you on to do so, this is what occurs. A light experience that stays with you and shows you something about yourself that you didn't know. Now, the experience is non-conceptual, but within the conceptual nature of our own existence here in space and time, it shows up in a language. It will leave us in a language or with something that we can understand, a principle, a learning, a lesson that we learn to apply within space and time as a way of integrating the light and allowing the darkness that used to make up our consciousness be freed from all the ideas associated with what is relieved in that instant of forgiveness that we allow ourselves to have. The ego thinks that what one gains, totality must lose. And yet it is the will of God that I learn that what one gains is given unto all. Yes, and an experience of understanding what the oneness of the kingdom is, not by any conceptual mind or an explanation or definition, but because you experience yourself within the oneness of the entirety of creation. You recognize who you are, what you are, in the totality of a relationship and a reality wherein which everything is shared wholly. And we talk about that as soul. And because we are created as that soul, the spirit that we carry in us and is attempting to integrate us back into reality and our minds and hearts back into the spirit of oneness is what causes the pressure on the system that gives us the discomfort, to give us the signal that we could utilize this learning for. Oh, I must have been arrogant. I must have filled up that space wherein which truth can dawn. Now, when we recognize the ways in which we do that in space and time, the next time we do it, we can catch ourselves say, oh, I don't have to do that now. And just not do that because this is what we want. And the truth will dawn of itself. The Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, will enter into you and you will simply know. Now you're going to be responsible for that. And it will act like a worm in your system. Anything that's inconsistent with him, it's going to be brought to your attention, which is why it's important to remember the technique of forgiveness by utilizing these backdoor understandings. Not as a way of judging you as a failure, but as a way of showing you how to succeed. Father, your will is total, and the goal which stems from it shares its totality. What aim but salvation of the world could you have given me? And what but this could be true? What but this could be the will myself has shared with you? Yes, because we share one will with our Father. And it wouldn't matter whether we were in an illusion or not. We would still share one will with our Father, and all the joy would still come from aligning and converging with that will. And it is His will that we be saved from any condition that is not completely and totally happy. Okay, so this must be an illusion by definition of what happiness is. Not by definition, we would see, that's the difference. It's an illusion based on an understanding of what happiness and totality is. It's not an illusion if we utilize illusions within the illusion to justify it. Then it becomes the reality of our mind and the experience we're having. Okay? I came for the salvation of the world. Now, I don't know if this is lesson 319 or not, but I'm telling you something from my experience and my heart and mind. I'm only here for one reason. I'm here for the salvation of the world. I came here for the salvation of the world. That includes you. Whether you know what salvation is or not makes no difference to me, because in my experience of it, so is you. You were there with me. Okay? Now, this lesson is Jesus' certainty and my shared certainty. I don't know. There's a line. I was talking to Victor Wooten this weekend, who was around. It was very strange hanging with Victor Wooten and Larry Sire. These guys are masters in their field, and we were hanging like brothers and got to know each other because I came for the salvation of the world, and that's the only thing I'm about. And they were there for the same reason. I came for the salvation of the world, and I have been saved, and I always was saved by the grace of God from any thought that anything could touch me or you. Okay? Now, when any two join together, it's gotta end the separation. As far as I know, Jesus and I are joined in a single will of purpose that I came for the salvation of the world. He came and experienced salvation of the world. He told me that if I followed the guidance that was given to me, this would occur. And I trust him because every promise he's ever made, he has fulfilled. So I came for the salvation of the world. And you were with me when I was saved, as you were with him when he was saved. So I don't know how long this is going to take. But I can't understand how you would not want to be involved in the contagion of salvation that takes place, in the joy of him and I coming together, in the recognition that you were there with us as well.